this Rick and Janet, Corey?
Yeah.
He's my successor. Everyone give him a round of applause, please. Baseball.
I'm just here for the open bar.
Yeah.
Oh.
Jack,
Thank you.
Okay, 6:57.
Yep.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Do we have groups? Do we have one group, two groups, three groups? Of public?
One.
Bob, you wanna run your show, or what do you wanna do?
It's public comment time?
Public comments, you're first up.
Okay.
So then you don't have to stay here all night, isn't it?
Great, great.
Okay, I guess I can stand up. There's just a few members of Friends of Brodie Park South, and we put together a video of some of the activity that's been happening out there that particularly has escalated this summer, and mushrooms exploded actually. And I do believe a lot of people are depending on hearsay for what's going up on there. They've never seen it, they've never heard it. So that's what this is about. And as a group and as a neighborhood, I should say as a group, because the neighborhood was the last group of people to join an effort to stop the activity that's the active recreation up at Brodie Park South. We would like the Recreation Department, actually what we're seeking is a commitment to not allow this to continue to happen up there, starting with this year, to not let it occur.
This as in what?
As in the recreation that's going on up there.
You mean kids being there?
No.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Car traffic, lights,
Okay.
lots of noise,
Yeah.
5 nights a week, weekend mornings. It's overflowing traffic, it's parking in and on the lot, it's the zoning issues with the pods and the lights and the generators, and the video captures a lot of that. So our interest is to, again, to seek commitment from the Rec Department to not allow this to happen in a residential neighborhood, because it literally changes the nature of the neighborhood.
Okay. Are you all together, or we have more than one group?
I believe.
I'm trying to separate who the public is, and if you're all Brodie Park South or not Brodie Park South? Brodie Park South?
It's not on here.
Visual observer.
Okay.
I'm not on board with her.
Okay.
And
Okay. Excuse me, all set?
I think so.
Okay,
Bob, you
yeah.
need any help,
Good.
or?
I think we're good.
Turn the light off, maybe?
Turn the lights on.
Oh, the lights.
Where are the lights?
Bob Britton, myself.
I think it's just the internet connection is slow here.
I think we get the point.
Yeah, and you can't watch it, it's too hurtful to look at.
Yeah, so
And you're right,
that's
I
what,
mean,
that's the
camera
general
moving
level of
all the
activity there,
time.
and it's happening between 8 and 9 at night. It's after dark, and I know Martha lives, you know, she's probably less than 100 feet away from that, and.
What I am as well.
So
Yeah,
we're
And,
not,
and that noise level is actually turned down from what it actually is, because it echoes, because it's a mountain. That is not even a correct sound level if you're in my yard.
well, do I need to ask the board, are we being cut off from finishing it? It's a very short.
well, I think
video.
that the internet connection is such that we probably would have a hard time.
Unless there's anything other than that, I think
You
think,
got the picture?
yeah.
Not the full picture.
Excuse me.
No,
Not the, no. Yeah, some of the.
The Recreation Commission is well aware of your concerns. And we've had discussions with, the first selectman, Dan is here. And for lack of better terms, we're trying to make everybody happy. If not 100% happy, as much as we possibly can. And we are working on that. No final decisions have been made as far as what's going to happen. However, that being said, Brodie Park South is a recreational facility. It can and will continue to be used by kids that play sports, just the way it is. It can and will continue to be used by people that want to walk through it. That's what it's meant for. It is a park, it's legally a park, it'll continue to be used by a park, whether it's soccer, whether it's a smaller form of football, whatever it is a park. So if the intent is to eliminate that kind of activity, I don't see that as happening. If your intent is to reduce the noise a little bit, if your intent is to cut back on the parking situation that's on the street, we're working on that. We're working on that.
I think we'd
As
like
far
to
as the
see,
lights
you
are
know,
concerned, that's a planning and zoning issue that we can't react to now. If you want to expand on that a little bit, that's not anything that we can decide.
Just so, John said a lot. John and I have met at this table as well as privately. He has echoed your concerns, but we've discussed this at the Selectmen's Board meeting. New field space does not occur or appear overnight. It is a monetary issue in a difficult economy, and it's a construction issue. It just takes time. That assumes that you have the money. The Selectmen have discussed and agreed to put forth some allocation of funding. We had a meeting at Antolini's school last week. We had a meeting here the other day with our town's consulting engineer to talk about what it would take to expand Antolini's fields to further the effort of trying to put football into a less contentious location. But that said, when you move football from one field to another, that eliminates soccer practice from that field. It's not safe to assume that there would be no organized sports at South Brodie or Brodie Park or at New Hartford Elementary, wherever that demand goes. We have a shortage, we understand it, and it's not going to go away until we bring new field space online. And in this economy, with little to no construction going on in town that would create additional revenue for our town, every dollar that we spend is a direct pass-through to our taxpayers, dollar for dollar. Of course, the cost of doing business, oil, insurance, everything else wants to go up. So to allocate more and more money towards recreation is very, very difficult. Everybody at this board table knows that the dollars have gotten tighter over the last few years. So we've got a problem, we understand that, but the bottom line is that we don't have the money to make it magically disappear. So I think that even in our best efforts, if we were to allocate some money for engineering this year, to try to push forward the effort to gain zoning approvals to expand the field. They would have, then bring forward a whole new criteria of what would have to be done at Antolini, which would mean cutting of trees, excavation of the stumps and whatever rocks or whatever up at the top of Antolini, parking and handicap accessibility issues, additional parking issues. We know there's only about 125 parking spaces at Antolini, and anybody who's gone to Antolini for any type of event like Breakfast with Santa, we know that it can be quite cramped up there. I don't know what zoning will tell us are the requirements. So we have a situation where we understand that we need more field space. We don't have a pile of money to go make it magically appear. We have a difficult economy, and we are trying. But in the interim, you know, we have practice fields and we have game fields, and we are trying to make or prepare a plan for a transition, but I think that we need to understand that it doesn't happen overnight. So.
That being said, you know, do we have a concern about parking on the street? Yes, we do. Have we discussed trying to remedy that? Yes, we have. This commission has not been, it has been very active trying to solve these issues.
Are you aware that there was a police call by a neighbor about the parking that was completely unresponded to? And actually followed up the next day, and the police actually said they never even got the call about the parking coming down Niles Road all along the side, both sides of the road.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any control over the police.
Right.
But it is a concern of ours, and everyone in here will echo that. As far as the noise goes, I'm not sure how you can, you know, stop practice noise.
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but it seems when we were playing this video, everybody in here was tense and wanted it shut off. And I just want you to imagine that goes on from 4:30 till 8:30 at 9 or 9 at night. It can't be shut off. We can't turn that down. We don't have, you're saying you don't have any control over it. You're also not in the neighborhood living right next door to that, and you all felt difficulty, I know, listening to it in this room.
Clearly the park was actually closed by, you know, by the signage on the park at the time that was happening. The park should have been closed.
Well, these things are being addressed. It is a topic of conversation, many conversations, many emails. Your opinions have been heard. We are trying to rectify this as best we can. Is it going to be, as Dan says, is it going to be a solution overnight? No. Are we going to try to remedy it as best we can while we're in a transition? Yes, we will. You know, I wish we could all make it better overnight. That just can't happen. But the parking is an issue as far as we're concerned. It is an issue. Having cars on that street, on a heavily traveled street, does create a safety hazard.
That's considered
as far as the lights are concerned, you know, that's a P&Z issue that's going to be decided on anytime soon. I'm not sure how that works, but.
The parking or?
No, the lights.
The lighting? I don't know that they'll take it up until next fall.
Is Niles Road considered a heavily traveled street?
I don't think it's any more heavily traveled than most
Well,
other
you just described
arterial
it as
roads
a
in
heavily
town.
traveled street. John.
It's a heavily, as far as I'm concerned, it's a widely used road. How's that? But you know, we have other people to get to. We have other issues on the agenda here. I can tell you that your concerns have been heard, and we are attempting to address those issues.
Can I ask one more
That's what I can
question?
do.
Something that was cut off in there. At a meeting after the walkthrough of Antolini and Steel Road, Dan Eddy had said that New Hartford Elementary, approved by the superintendent and approved by the principal to move football as of last September down there. Football rejected that. And I'm wondering how any organization, sports or anything, could look for space in a town, be offered it and say, no thanks, we don't like that space.
That's still under review and still under discussion. As you can well imagine, there are other ramifications to that because of the area that it's in. Again, the traffic flow, there's, you know, many houses in that area. I mean, it's the same, almost be the same situation there as it is where we are now.
On an elementary
You
school
know, so,
grounds.
yeah, I mean, there are a lot of cars that do go
Okay,
through there,
the
a lot of houses that are in that neighborhood. We'd still have the noise issue, we'd still have the lights issue, I mean, but again, we are trying to remedy this as best we can. And we're gonna try to make everybody as happy as we can too. But again, Brodie South will be used as a facility for recreation sports. That's not gonna go away. You know, whether it's you know, soccer or maybe it's softball or whatever, it's a facility that will be used, and as Dan says, you know, practice space comes at a premium, and with more and more programs coming in, we're gonna need that, so. Anyway, we'll do the best we can to help your cause, certainly.
Just on a historical perspective, because I'm confused, does the Recreation Commission have priority as far as designating what kind of activities occur on the town property? And is the Recreation Committee the one that's responsible for moving youth football? We're not against youth football, please don't misunderstand. We just think the location is inappropriate. You know, we do think that youth football has its place. We just don't think it belongs in Brodie Park South right now. But getting back to the question, I understand that there's plenty of time and space at Brown's Corners for youth football to practice, and they're not allowed there. It's kind of the story that I'm hearing. Can you fill me in or fill
Well,
us in on that?
Brown's Corner is not used as practice for any of the sports. An additional problem that nobody here has addressed, that this commission sees and other people really active in sports see, is the abuse of fields. A field cannot sustain
Right, I understand.
7 days a week practice. And with all of the sports activities that we have, Brown's Corner needs to rest during the week because it is completely utilized Saturdays and Sundays. So that's why practices are not held there. Soccer practices aren't held there, football practices aren't held there. And
So
that's a function
there
of
are
what
gaps
needs
in
to
the
be done.
schedule where they could be scheduled there.
No,
Not consistently, solidly.
Not without abusing the field. No, you cannot put a practice every Tuesday and Thursday down in Brown's Corner with kids who half the time they're sort of lazing around and digging their cleats into the soil. Even during games, they stand there and dig their cleats into the soil.
So why is it any different for them to do practice 5 days a week up at Brodie South? Why is there a difference then? You're still going to incur the same damage.
Because Brodie South has a more significant turf base. It is not as focused in any one given area, which is part of your concerns, in that it is pretty expansive up there in the areas that it uses. Were you to take that same group and put it in Brown's Corner, which is about half the area, you're going to be doubling the abuse on the playing surface. And that's an issue that needs to be addressed as these fields are developed, because it's really, Brown's Corner, baseball and soccer have done virtually all of the funding for that. And to develop that to the extent where it is today, as opposed to 15 years ago, has been extremely expensive for those sports to do. To turn it into a practice field and destroy the irrigation system and go back to basically a sand lot would be a huge waste of money.
But getting back to the original question, how did youth football end up in Brodie South?
How did youth football? Because they had started practicing at Antolini. Antolini had been a traditional area where soccer, generally between 6 and 10 youth soccer teams practice at Antolini, and they traditionally have. The field that was least used at the time football needed practice facilities about 4 years ago was Brodie South, and that's why they ended up there. Virtually all of the other fields in town, practice areas, have traditionally been used by soccer. So rather than change the traditions around, soccer remained at Antolini. Now, as Dan pointed out earlier, not only were we to move football to Antolini, but there's a year, Dan didn't mention it, there is a year growing period when you rebuild fields. So if you think it's bad now, when this field, it's aggressively pursued, and we reach that point with a year-in growth period, we're gonna have 10, in addition to what we have now, we're gonna have 10 soccer teams displaced from Antolini that are gonna need at least 1 year worth of practice time in some other field in town. And that's just gonna be a huge crunch for that 1 year. And then we can redistribute the practice fields among the various sports. But soccer is traditionally practiced up there Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock. 5 nights a week, 2 teams each night, or 2 practice schedules each night. So if we put football up there, they have to go somewhere. And then if we take them out of Brodie South, then Brodie South is now the field that's least active.
So you're saying there's 5 teams playing 2 nights a week? Is that what you just said?
2 teams each night, 5 nights a week at Antolini in soccer teams. So some years there's less, some years there's 6. But Antolini is the most popular practice site in town.
This year was only 4 nights a week.
That's
to be
amazing,
honest.
because I've been scheduling soccer
one night that
practices
was
for 10 to 12 years, and that field always filled up first.
The question that sort of got asked other questions over, I guess, was who decides, who's in charge of deciding who uses town land for what?
How was
The
that scheduled? How was
Recreation
it set?
Commission. In the past, it hasn't been a huge issue, so largely the sports have self-regulated and just come to the Rec Commission and said, we're doing this, and it hasn't been an issue.
We have worked, the baseball and soccer and football work together along with Dennis, providing the Rec Commission with the practice schedules, how many teams we have, and where the best practice fields could be. Going back to your question about Brown's Corner, if you look at the big soccer field, we have a baseball field over in this corner and a baseball field over on the corner of 202. What we have to do is work together, baseball and soccer has to work together, because we almost carve out a baseball field over in this corner, and we have to fill it in again when soccer starts so that nobody gets hurt. If you're running and you're running on the grass and suddenly you're hit the baseline, you know, it becomes potential for a child getting hurt. So we try to coordinate all practices so that the upper level Little League teams who play from June to August are not interfering with the travel soccer teams who are practicing or playing down at Brown's Corner for the same reasons. And that's pretty much where we came into the lack of a space for football to
And Brodie
practice on.
North, I don't see a lot of traffic at Brodie North up by the field house, which has a level field as opposed to Brodie South, which really has a major pitch to it.
We
Well, the
have
slopes are about the
baseball,
same in both
yeah,
of them.
we have baseball practices there and soccer practices, so.
But there's also a perception that youth football, unfortunately, seems to be allowed extra margins as far as the times that they're allowed to play. There's signage there. Somebody puts signage up there that clearly states that the park closes at sunset. And bringing these lights in, you know, just goes beyond, way beyond that. And I understand that as the season gets later, that the daylight gets shorter also. But if the signage is there, somebody set it up.
We are having those discussions. Dan and I met last week, and that was a topic of discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
It's a difficult position for it's never been confronted before. I think Dan just said, you know, it's frequent that soccer teams will stay up behind Antolini until 7 or 8 o'clock at night, because that's the luxury of playing, you know, through the early fall,
Right.
late summer.
Right.
But when the clocks change in October, and it's dark at 4:45, most of us haven't gotten out of work yet. And yet those teams, for some reason, victim of circumstance that they play a fall sport, are they not supposed to practice because the clock's changed? Are we supposed to build an indoor dome?
That's an issue that's gonna have to be
Yeah.
resolved, I agree.
I mean, it's a tough spot,
It is.
you know, and that's why,
But this year
When
in
we-
particular,
if you'll
things
let me
up
finish
there
for a second.
became really unacceptable. With the noise, the volume, the traffic, the tailgate partying, I mean, it was out of control. And
I
it
think
really
that we all-
escalated a little bit last year, but this year it really, literally exploded, for lack of a better word, as far as the how it impacted our lives. And it
think
just
we
seemed
all
like there was
recognize that it's
no
a big
willingness
organization.
there on their part to try to work together. It was a very one-sided relationship. You know, we tried to approach them, we tried to work with them, and there was a lot of negative behavior, unfortunately.
Well,
And again,
that's
we're
something that
not
none of us
trying
will
to,
agree
we're not trying to
agree
destroy youth
obviously.
football. We think it's a great activity, but we're just concerned about how it's happening and where it's happening.
Yeah, these.
And I'm speaking
Yeah.
for myself.
No, that's okay, that's
Yeah.
okay, you can speak for the group. You know, all the things that you're mentioning have been topics of discussion between the Rec.Commission and the First Selectman's office, and we have met more than once on this.
I appreciate
And we'll
that.
continue
We
to meet on
appreciate
this.
hearing that.
I mean, excess noise, obviously, we don't want it, I mean, traffic, the parking on the streets, those are all topics of discussion that we would like to remedy as well, but again, there's just.
I might just break in.
Sure.
This is a perfect segue of what the type of conversations that John and Dan and I have had, and Ed Smith, who's unfortunately not here, is we could talk about making South Brodie Park safe by spending $25,000 on expanding the parking. Do you think that's appropriate, or should we take that same $25,000, knowing the times are tough, and put it into engineering at Antolini Field to expand that field and pursue,
Well, that brings up a point about
extension?
zoning violations too, because it's pretty clear that some of these behaviors are in violation.
I just asked a specific
Well,
question.
again, if you're gonna go that route,
But
then you
if,
should be
if I
brought through
could,
planning and
this
zoning,
is the
correct?
difficulty of our position, to
Oh, I
say
agree.
that we don't have a checkbook with $500,000 in it
Correct.
to pursue fields. And as I've said to John, we all know the difficulty of our position in terms of capital and finances. I just sat in on a meeting last night where I was told at Region 7 that every other town in the district is losing kids to the tune of 20 kids, yet New Hartford's kids and our population is going up by 20 kids. We all know what that means, is that the proportional shifting of tax base will require us to pay substantially more above and beyond whatever the cost of living increases for their budget are, just out of population.
Right.
Our pool of funds that we have for all things that our New Hartford gets leaner and leaner. And when we talked about this, and John and I talked about, the effort of the town through the selectmen to pursue approvals would probably be best served to move towards improving a less contentious location rather than trying to make improvements. And we could work together to try to manage the parking in the interim while we work to segue to a new location. I think it might be counterproductive and end up having football be with you longer if we focused what little money we had to expand parking. So therefore, the question remains is how do we manage it? How do we best get through this difficult situation? It's like having 10 kids in a 3-bedroom house. What are you gonna do until the addition gets built? You gotta get bunk beds, or whatever. Well, we've gotta do something to manage this while we pursue Lennard Engineering providing us with a task order to design what we need in terms of a field expansion for 150 feet to get them some sort of equitably similar sized field, because the fields up there are 2.5+ acres, and our largest single field facility would be 1.4. So it's almost half the size of a program that's growing so quickly to become this large organization that the longer we wait, the harder it's going to be to manage. So I think the selectmen were pretty decisive in saying that, in our opinion, the Steel Road facility, old Steel Road facility, wasn't going to provide the answers to our problem. The better bet was to pursue, as quickly as possible, the Antolini site, as it's already an existing facility, it already has infrastructure, and it's in a less contentious location that already has some element of parking lights. So
And
that when we
safety.
go to the
You have
planning,
safety too, right there. You have the fire and safety right there too.
well, the parking there is an issue.
Infrastructure, yeah, the
There's
infrastructure.
only 125 cars, and I think that every time I go to an event there are parking issues there also.
Granted.
And if we bring more and more activities to that school. We're gonna need to bring more and more parking, and there's no doubt in my mind. But we did have that meeting and we are pursuing. I think that we all know that it's been there for quite a while. I think we've had several recreational challenges with the ongoing, difficult situation we faced at Brown's Corner, which is fast moving towards completion, and that the fill is almost gone, and we're looking for a rededication in the spring. And then we can really put our full energy into trying to expand this. But it doesn't come free, and it certainly doesn't come instantaneously.
But until we can find a more suitable and more satisfying area, we're gonna have to get through this. It's not forever, but you folks have made the point that it seems that this year seemed to be a lot different than in years past. And I don't remember the amount of vocal opposition to football until really this year, to be honest with you. I mean, in the past it was a little bit, but it was acceptable. Now what I'm hearing is that it's much more magnified.
It's not the football, it's always
Well,
important to say that, I know.
activity. It's been more magnified, but it was football 2 years ago too. So my point is that I think you've been heard, and we will address these things as best we can before the fall. Will football be there in the fall? In all likelihood, yes, they will be, this summer and fall. Do we have to address some of your issues? I think we do. And they've been topics of discussion. I can't tell you how many phone calls, how many emails, how many meetings we've had that where we are in the process of doing this. We will meet with football because they use the facility. And, they're good guys. They're volunteers just like all of you are at any kind of different activity in town, just like all of we are. So we will discuss, your concerns with them, and we'll do the best we can.
One last question. How does the Rec.Commission deal with out-of-town participation in sports, whether it be soccer or football? What if soccer was 50% out-of-town participation? Does that have any impact on your decisions in using the fields or facilities?
Well, the problem is, that has come up before. Are there any other fields outside of New Hartford, and nobody's come running toward us. Soccer has gone through this where they have gone out to others' fields when we needed the space, which we have in the past. The situation with football, if I'm not mistaken, it is the numbers of kids are mostly New Hartford kids, if I'm not mistaken.
This board has been approached in the past by a number of organizations who have New Hartford participants, but are predominantly other towns, and this board has strongly suggested that they find other fields to use. And to date, I'm not aware of any sporting activity that has used our facilities that is not dominated by New Hartford people.
You're not asking about other
So
teams
other-
who come in and play.
No,
You're
I'm just
asking
asking
about-
about consideration of the commission when
Right.
teams become
Pretty much
heavily
the
weighted
way-
to out of town, or, I don't know
Pretty-
what that means, 40%?
Pretty much the way the towns are structured is, we go back to Regional 7 because that's where everybody ends up, and it seems to be the group of towns. Winston is on its own, handling its own things, and so is Torrington. New Hartford represents 50% of the population of Regional 7, give or take 1 or 2%. Barkhamsted represents 25%, Colebrook and Norfolk each represent 12.5%. So when you're getting organized sports that may include all of those towns, the percentages seem to hold pretty close, although not a lot of people from Norfolk does have some of its own programs, so a lot of those people aren't coming down. But we find that the Barkhamsted kids may join New Hartford kids, but they tend to stay in that ratio. So we haven't run into the situation where we have a team that is dominated by out-of-town kids, never mind just one other town.
And football is very much dominated by New Hartford kids. We've even gone to Regional 7 and asked them, can we use your space? And the answer is no. We tried to use it for soccer, and the answer is no. We get enough play up there as it is. Same reason at Brown's Corner. We're going to eat this place up, and there's not enough room to put a football field up there. Obviously, we went to Winston, asked if we can use Gilbert. originally when this was set up, when football was set up, the 4 games were gonna be played there. And all of a sudden they came to the football about 2 months before and said, yeah, we really can't do that. And they let them have 1 game the first year and they're all done. You know, so football, soccer, and baseball put their heads together and figured out how they can at least commingle at Browns Corner. You know, so, but again.
Outside of this group, I have also met with Don Stein and Dale, the town manager of Winstead, as well as Judy Palmer, and we have been seeking regional opportunities to try to provide any opportunity to provide a shared space. You know, because Regional 7 is confronted with the same issue that we are. They have a growing, you know, football program there that they don't have any space for. They're in a co-op agreement with Gilbert that they are really stretched to the limit for right now. So we've been looking at that level too to see if there's another way to solve this problem regionally outside of this group, so that, you know, all the towns might come up with a shared facility that might be used. And we continue to meet to discuss it. But again, it doesn't come quickly, it doesn't come free.
It's a time factor. Just to give you a little bit more information, over the last probably 5 years, we've looked at, I can't tell you, at least a dozen alternate space as possibilities for all-purpose fields. And none, for whatever reason, whether it be money or whatever the case may be, that's not worked out. There are a couple of people in town, and you folks probably know one of them anyway, who is actively looking for other pieces of land in town that we might be able to use. Those all been brought up and discussed, and people contacted. So fortunately we have Cub Scouts here, and we have other business to get to, and I don't want to downplay this, but if you could just leave the room thinking that we understand what you're telling us, this is not new to us, we have been acting on it, we've been discussing it, and we hope to come up with some remedies to your problems. We really do. I mean, it's we understand.
That's more of an honest response than I've heard in a long time, so thank you.
I don't think there's anybody here that would argue about endorsing a plan to expand Antolini if we could get past, the surveying and the engineering needed to get it in front. It's just a matter of even then.
Now, have you gone in and looked at population so you know where you're going as far as you know what the population is? Like schools will go through and they'll project what the enrollments will be.
It's not.
Are you capable of doing that also, so you know approximately what your numbers will be?
The issue isn't so much a specific growing population. The problem is, and it's not a problem, the issue that's created the problem is that young people are so much more active in sports today. And they're being active longer. The young adults from 18 to 40 or older are active and aggressive in sports, and we have an indoor volleyball team that plays up at the school for young adults. And so what we're seeing happening when fall used to be just soccer, fall baseball started up and grew, and kids will play both fall soccer and fall baseball. And football came along, and some of the kids migrated to football, but they don't jive with the exact same time as soccer is playing. So the fact that soccer may have lost soccer over the last 10 or 15 years has had about 320 to 300, recreation soccer, not travel, has had 320 to 360 kids participate, which is virtually 60% of our young population. So when it loses 50 or 60 kids to the football program from K1 to 8th grade, you're only losing 5 or 10. So the program itself doesn't diminish. The actual team sizes may go from 15 to 13, but you got the same number of teams using the fields.
That's the question I posed.
So what's happening is more kids are playing more sports, demanding more field space to play those sports. It's not that the population is growing.
So you have a handle on how many children are out there?
Yeah, I mean,
We've had several meetings documenting the populations of all.
But you can't always tell, I think what Dan was trying to say, you can't always tell that if you have X amount of children of sports age, and soccer numbers go down, but maybe baseball numbers go up, it's the same number of children.
there's still
So
usage.
it's hard to
Right.
project actually what grade level is going to be more actively
But
participating.
facetiously, you're not projecting for 5,000.
No.
No,
And I
But
actually,
the offerings are getting more widespread.
Right.
You're finding more travel opportunities, you're finding the duality of spring baseball, fall baseball, now spring soccer, fall soccer,
Mhm.
you know?
and
It's-
lacrosse is
And
gonna come along in the
lacrosse.
spring. I mean, there's a lot of talk over the last 3 or 4 years, we're gonna see that in a year or two.
right. And
And that's the spring sport.
But we do understand that you're not anti-football, we do understand you're not anti-recreation, we do understand you're not anti-kids.
That's an important point,
We
because it's
understand
been portrayed that way,
It goes,
unfortunately.
it goes without saying,
Thank you.
We understand that, but we'll do the best we can, and we'll keep you updated on what's going on, I'm sure you heard what's going on anyway.
And
A few
again,
people
thank
from
you.
the area do call me on a regular basis, from your neighborhoods, and call me on a regular basis, what's new, this is what I hear, what do you know? And, there are no secrets, it's an open forum, so.
Well, transparency is key to understanding.
Agreed. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for coming.
Okay.
You want me to move, or you want to
Where do you want me to go?
wherever you want.
Stay right there.
You can stay right there, they can,
All right.
patient.
How you doing?
Go for a little bit, so in there.
How's that?
That's fine. One day at a time.
There's Martha.
Your turn. Okay. My name's Kristen Phillips, I'm the Cub Master of Cub Scout Pack 19. And it was brought to my attention that there was discussion about a ropes course perhaps being to be put into Brodie Park, and that it was going to be put where our current, where we have a fire ring where we do our campfires for Cub Scouts. And so it was brought to my attention through the grapevine, and I just wanted to express the opinion of Cub Scouts that we've been there a long time, and if at all possible, if this was actually gonna go through, if you could consider a different space. Cub Scouts has been there I've been involved in Cub Scouts for 7 years, and we use it multiple times a year. We use that space, and we have 60 kids that use that space for at least 3 different activities per year. And so I was just asking for your consideration in moving it somewhere else if in fact this was to go through, and if in fact this was going to be considered.
The ropes course has been under serious consideration. It's not 100%, but it's on its way. It's an activity that Cub Scouts could use, that Boy Scouts could use, that
When I
you know,
first heard it, I said, oh, great.
multi-use.
Sounds good.
One of the issues is, where it could fit in the park. And, can it be close enough to all of the activities? Where you have your fire pit, I'll let Dennis take the wing on this one if you would. But is there something about that specific little area, or can it be somewhere else in the park? That, bigger place? I don't know.
I don't know, it depends on what you're gonna do there, and it's just, that spot has always been there, and we maintain it, we clear it out every year, and, we have our spot there, and I don't know where else we would put it, where it would be close enough to the Cub Scout facility, and still be safe to have a fire.
How about behind the buildings?
Behind the Cub Scout building?
Yeah, clear out an area?
I don't know, I honestly haven't looked at it because.
We don't own that land behind the Cub Scout building, you own Boy Scout.
Yeah, this is Cub Scouts, which is the building right next to.
One of the reasons we looked at that spot
Yeah.
is the ropes course. Some of the equipment we would have to take down every time, and there's a cabin right next door, so we can readily take that right there. So it's a safety thing. We know that we're gonna be as safe as we can, but kids are gonna come there and try to climb up the wall. We're gonna roll it up 12, 15 feet or whatever. But one of the things we can do, we could take a walk through the park and look at another spot, and if you guys see something you like, then we could, you know, work towards, you know, having another pit somewhere. I mean, this is not something that's gonna happen this summer anyway, but I think we can, take a walk through the park and see if we can find another spot.
Yeah, I don't think that that's a huge deal, except for, like I said, not that we wanna walk all the way to the field house.
No,
You know what I'm saying? I
we don't want you doing that.
Just so you know, I think what Chris is saying is that the little kids have their campouts right in front of Berkshire Hall.
mean, yeah,
And
they are
the
little,
walkway
we're talking
right
about
through the little
first
trail.
graders, we're talking about
No, I
6-year-olds,
understand.
so.
I understand.
You know, it's 6 to 10-year-olds that we're talking about, so, just to traipse up 60 kids and their families. And then just too, that we were never even contacted about that. I heard it through the grapevine that was happening, which is why I felt like I had to come today, to express our opinion.
To be honest with you, I didn't even know you had a fire pit
See,
ceremony, so.
now you know.
So, I wasn't.
Which we do try to maintain, and we do
Yeah,
try to, and
yeah.
I know that there's
I
also a Boy Scout that, and I don't know if he gave that information to you, Dan. I think, or he was gonna
Right.
send it to the commission, or.
Well, I had, obviously, one of the, is the assistant master in the Scouts also registered, not necessarily an objection to a ropes course, just the specifics of the location, and it actually contemplated asking permission to improve it as part of an Eagle Scout project.
Right, there was a Boy Scout that wanted to improve that fire pit as part of his Eagle Scout project, which I would hate to see him go through that approval process of getting that done, just to have it moved, so. I guess we're just asking to be kept in the loop with that, given that.
Could you,
Do you know who's that Boy Scout, that wants to do that as part of it?
Brian Fry.
Brian,
if
So
you and
you're
Dennis,
not, I'm sorry.
if you and Dennis wanna, you know, make an arrangement where the two of you and the Boy Scout can walk through the park to see if there's any other Cub Scout leaders, whatever you prefer to do, just to see if there is an alternative.
Yeah.
You know, this commission and a number of people have been around long enough, that when you folks rebuilt that, and you guys did a great job. You know, the Boy Scouts are doing theirs and the Lions Club did theirs, and it really enhances the park, it really does. And, you know, there are a few people still on this commission when that was redone, we wanted to figure out a way where you could have use of that for basically forever, which is $1 a year lease. That the town has with you folks, it's yours to use.
Right.
And I still think we paid the electric bill,
Yeah.
Not the oil.
so.
Not the oil, though.
Yeah, not the oil. But why don't we just leave it, you
Yeah, I
with
just,
you
I
and
just
Dennis
want to be kept in the
through
loop
it.
with
Yeah, that's
that,
fine.
you know, make
I
sure
don't
that.
think either one of us was aware of the
Yeah.
significance of both of the.
Yeah, it's just a big part of our program,
Right,
is the
okay,
campfires, and
right.
it's a big deal, and if we were to lose that,
No,
that
No.
would really not be.
you're not gonna,
Yeah, okay.
we'll figure something.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah,
thanks.
thanks. That was easy.
Should have had you go first.
Yeah, really.
In New Hampshire, you can't have a fire without a permit.
Thanks for what you do.
Campfire.
Absolutely.
We do always have somebody from the fire department. Thanks for what you do.
Great.
Thank you guys too, we're all volunteers, right?
That's right.
Yes, we
That's
do.
right.
Thank you.
Okay, we have enough, here, we're at last meeting to approve the minutes.
Move to
Motion.
approve as
We need
to do it.
Second.
Before else.
Who was
Oh,
it?
so the meeting before.
Do we have the people, do we have enough people here for that?
The
Yeah,
month before?
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
2 months ago you're talking about, right?
yeah.
No, when's the January 4th?
No, January.
No, we're
December?
talking about December.
Oh,
We
Right.
didn't
Well,
have,
the December, right.
December's
In
first.
January, we couldn't approve the December ones.
right, so for the December meeting,
Yeah.
there were 4 people here that were at that meeting.
Oh, let's see.
This is the interesting part of the meeting.
I know.
Just kidding, just
That's
kidding.
where we have the fun. Dennis brings the refreshment.
Let's see who was at that.
I know.
Well, let's do January, because we do have enough here. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and amendments, alterations? Okay. January's done while you're looking at that.
December, is that the meeting I had? Yeah.
That was the meeting.
I was there,
Maureen
you were
and,
there.
oh no, who was here? Dan, Eddie, Paul, Don, Sally.
There you go.
Okay,
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
through December
December.
minutes,
Of
which you all
2011.
had back in December.
January.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, who did the January?
Yep. All right, Dan,
Maureen.
you're up.
Maureen.
Thanks. Gotta catch me quick, I forget.
I'll move right down the list. Finance, this is the expenditure budget here. If you guys have any questions on it, you can, everything's, seemed to be on target for right now. Program account, you see what we have in there right now, 14,000.
Where's that one?
That's right after the expenditure report. It's right in order, right there, yeah.
So 14 you're gonna go forward. What do we project we're gonna have by the time our season starts?
By the time the season start, you mean the summer season?
Getting ready, yeah, for camp.
It'll still hover somewhere around there, because we'll, have to pay some bills, but it'll still hover somewhere around there.
Okay, do we owe anybody any money? We have any receivables?
Not yet,
Out of
no,
that?
it should
No.
be okay.
Good.
The next sheet there, the budget is due for next year. This is what I submitted here. We only asked for an increase in the propane line item, simply because we have the maintenance cabin over on the other side. And also we asked for a little increase in contracted services. We, added a few more porta potties around. So the budget pretty much will be the same, but we just asked for a little increase in those two line items.
We don't have the, I don't remember what the final figure was for budget propane last year, but 2 years ago it was close to $7,000 for propane. Last year, it came in at 4,000, at 3,900.
Last year it was a little bit
Oh,
over.
no, that's this year's budget at 3,900.
We haven't finished this year.
And it's been a while. I mean, there's no room in our operating budget. It's virtually, you pair it to the bones just to pay for recurring expenses. And I don't wanna come up short in anything. I don't know if we need a little more for propane or not. This is a really mild winter.
That's possible. We could need a little more, but what we did last year, we had a little excess in another line item, so we were able to finish up pretty good.
Rob from Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
But Dennis has been relatively masterful in making this thing neat every year, so. Just assume we'll continue to do that.
On the contracted services at $34,000. And that's for the porta potties and the rubbish removal?
That's everything. That's electricity.
Did you ever check into these concrete porta potties that we would own, and then, of course we'd have to have them cleaned out? But we're renting these porta potties, and they got to be costing us a lot of money, and we don't own them.
Way back when we did look into that, it was more expensive. It ended up being more expensive, and then it was a maintenance issue.
Plus they need to be moved.
Way back,
For things
yeah.
like in Hartford Day, we need them up there, the lines go different areas.
We did
need
that.
to be able to move those
We
porta
did, we
potties.
explored that at one point.
United Concrete?
Yeah, I don't remember who, but
I don't remember your name.
Yeah, it was slightly more than what
It
we
was-
what we do.
Well, the original cost is gonna be high, but, your yearly expense must be going down for maintenance.
I'll look at the price again and see what's what, but I think the last time we looked at that, the way we have it now is the best way to go. But I'll take a look at it and come back with some prices.
And do you put propane out for bid?
We looked at a couple of different sources, and the one we use right now was comparable to everything that was out there. But we haven't looked at it again this year. What's that?
It's not Holcon.
Not Holcon, but it was, at the time, it was comparable to what we were doing, what everybody else was doing.
Same as town hall? Who we use for town hall?
We
You
don't
don't
use
have
propane.
propane. You don't have
We
propane.
use Winoco for.
Okay.
Moving right along
Good.
to correspondence.
I would only say is the thing that has been striking my ear from different people too is that in all things that are sports, the sports allocation, I know we tried to cut back on last year because some of the sports weren't taking different sports than we did.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm keeping an eye on that line item and gonna discuss it because we know that the basketball is running deficits just because of the rentals of the different facilities that they're playing at. We just have this lack of court space. And, you know, the town subsidizes the mowing for the soccer and football and baseball and does all those other things, but there's no way to subsidize that. I know they're getting $1,000 here, but the last time I heard, you know, our rental fees are something like $6,000 or $7,000 or
It's
$1,000.
outrageous, Dan. It's
Sally,
absolutely
you're more
outrageous.
intimate to it than I am, but I just,
It's ridiculously
and
expensive.
and the difficulty of their positioning is there's very limited ways for them to fundraise. Like soccer has their snack shack, baseball has theirs. So when you get into the realm of the best intentions to try to cover all costs, it seems like basketball is backed into a corner.
There's $2,000 that's in the budget. That's soccer and baseball. Basically, if I remember correctly, have not gotten any money in.
Right.
So right now it's football and
It was
basketball.
football
It's
and
just
basketball.
football and basketball.
And football because they were started in basketball for other reasons you just stated.
Right.
What we will do, and we have done, is if we do allow money to go to the individual sports, we ask them for their account numbers.
Very interesting.
So before we actually allow it, so you know, let's say football has a ton of money. You know, we could maybe allocate the $2,000 to basketball. You know, so it's kind of for us to divvy out, basically. So
But that's just something I was
The
gonna
third-
point out, and Dennis and I had talked about the allocation.
The third pass-through allocation that we have, and historically, we had tried to get financial information on it, but have not, so I hope the first selectman's office has and stays on top of it, is Stanford Cove. That $5,600 is drawn out every year, unsupervised. And we have never been provided financial documents from Stancliff. They've refused to give them to us, and for all we know, Stancliff's sitting on $200,000 over there. So I hope the selectman's office has been getting those reports and staying on top of them, because it's a sizable allocation.
I can't quote your numbers now, but that's something I could come back and give you a report on next month.
You're not the first selectman that we've asked that question.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
think there's
I know that Annie does a lot of the books for me,
Yeah.
so I'm pretty sure we have everything.
Good point, Dan.
I don't know, there's a double secret handshake in blood, something like that, we don't know about it, but it just seems that this goes out every year, and it's, whatever. Okay, good.
Next, we have the capital expenditure budget here for 2012, 2015. These are some of the projects we came up with, and we try to prioritize them, and this is what we come up with.
We took a look at this, and folks may got a preview of it, but the main intention was to confuse the hell out of the first selectman, which we did do. We were very successful.
No doubt about it.
Some of the things we targeted, obviously, the ropes course, and again, that's you know, we're still in the process of going through that. Land park was something that we've been talking about forever. And, you know, we've all voiced the opinion in the past, and we're all of the same opinion, that, you know, that is just too nice a piece of property to let go to waste. That we really should improve it. You know, it's front and center when you drive into the town, and if you beautify it, it'll look even better. And we don't think it's gonna take much, maybe over time, but, you know, we're trying to allocate, you know, some money toward that, you know, to improve it. I think a lot of volunteer work can go into it that'll make it even better, so it won't cost us any money. You know, Dan, Eddie, and I met with Dan Jerem last week, and you know, we're all like, you know, it's too good a piece of property to waste. So that's something that we do want to target. We talked about the Brodie house. You know, that's always been a target for demolition for a long time. And we got to thinking about it, and you know, we toyed with the idea: do we put a septic system in by the cabins to utilize those? The lease for the house comes up April of 2013, if I'm not mistaken, which is a year from now, almost a year from now. So you know, we had a discussion about, well, maybe we forego, you know, improving the cabins down below with a septic system and put some money toward the Brodie house and make that look nice. It's right at the corner of Niles and West Hill Road. We could use it for nurses' cabin. We can use it for programs. We can use it for senior citizens. There's a lot of things we can use it for. So I think the viewpoint of the commission, and I think Dan as well, is like, you know what? Let's think about this. You know, let's put our thoughts together, and you know, we have about another 8 to 12 months, let's just say, to figure this thing out. But I think it's really worth thinking about. We could maybe put that place to use. So, a few other things that we talked about. One of them is IT upgrade. Dan, if you just want to give us a kind of a brief explanation on that and why it's important.
Yep. 1995 called the other day, and they want the antiquated way back of doing business around computers.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I just found a whole box of multimedia 3-inch, 3.5-inch discs I can give you to use for that computer. No problem.
That's a lot of money.
I called some. Well, the way we're doing it now, and I can, you know, fast forward. The way we're doing it now, we send out the brochure. Someone fills out a application, then they bring it to us, and we type it in again because we're using something that we created back in like 2000. And so they fill it out at home, and then they bring it to us, and it takes us 10 minutes to fill out another application. So if everybody in here was standing in line to register for camp, we're at the computer trying to key this in, and you guys are just waiting, or we have to let it stack up to here until we can get back to it. But if we come into 2012, you can see that I talked to several rec departments, and it's got to go past a little bit here, start with West Haven, and they're using something called My Rec. And they're able to have people sign up. You can see some responses. People can, you know, sign up online, use credit cards. Their revenue was increased because, you know, 70–80% of their customers now are just doing the registration online. They don't have to try to rush out of work and get to the office or mail something in. So there's a lot of benefits to it. You can use, you can make flyers and do an e-blast, and there's just so many things you can do with this software. And I would say 90% of every rec department in the state is using some sort of software, and probably the ones who are not is New Hartford and probably any other, you know, little small operation. But
this is very similar to what the libraries went through about 1995 when they put all of their books online, and they set up a computer system so that you can scan the books. You know, they have little barcodes and things like that. Made their life 150% easier to do input like that.
Yeah, Dennis has been, you know, researching this, has been in contact with the First Selectman's office to discuss this. The one more thing, and then I'll kind of round this out. You know, trails throughout the parks. You know, it's been a topic of conversation for a long time. What goes into it, I really don't know. You know, we have a lot of territory in this town, and it would be nice to have trails through our parks. You know, there are some that are there, but they're, you know, somebody just went on a weekend and kind of cut it out. It'd be nice if we had a more formalized plan for this, which means we're gonna have to bring people into this that know a hell of a lot more about this than we do. But we'd like to allocate some money toward that, at least to get something going. The problem, obviously, and Dan mentioned this, you know, early on in the meeting, is there's only so much money to go around. And right now, we're being allocated $25 for capital expenditure, which, you know, to be honest, doesn't take us very far, but there's not much we can do about that. So we're trying to use it as wisely as we can, obviously. There are a lot of things to do. There are a lot of things we'd like to do. You know, we do have a program account that we can use for capital expenditures. However, it's also needed for emergency use in case, obviously, if monetarily we do need it. So, and that's been building up little by little. We hope next year that'll be more than $14,000 when we go into the summer season. So, I think moving forward, though, Callahan Park is something that we really want to improve upon.
Just to give everybody a quick tutorial on the math for the capital. Last year, the entirety of the town got $250,000. What we're struggling with this year is a new dump truck for DPW that even if we finance it over 3 years is $53,000. And then we have to pay for the second half of reval, which was $40,000. So, two things that we probably won't see very often, one which we probably won't enjoy very much, reval, which to me is a frightful concept that we do it every 5 years and it worked fine every 10 years as far as I was concerned. But those two expenditures are really not a debate, and they eat up almost, you know, $100 grand out of $250. So, you know, once you get into the rest of the minutia of the entirety of the town, which is not very flashy in terms of drainage jobs and different things around town that we're talking about pitching, the money dries up just as, which is what I tried to explain to the folks that were here earlier. It's not a very glamorous proposal to try to squeeze $25,000 and do another $25,000 towards pushing the Antolini Field proposal is really $50 to try to, and I know that it's, as John and I have discussed, you know, for you guys to try to foot the bill for either the field house, which I know, you know, Dale is here that has an interest in, or the field expansion, you wouldn't do anything else in town for the next 3 or 4 years. That's just basically the way it is, because you'd have to drop every single dime of every capital dollar for every park into any one of those projects, and the selectmen are aware of that. I think when we look at it, I personally don't have any objection to the Callahan. I like the trail idea. I think we need to quantify, you know, what we're looking for in our trails, how much improvement is, and it's really going to be machine time, and see how much we get for $5,000. See how many feet of improved trails with benches every how far, you know, every 300 feet or 400 feet, or sign locations that identify specific tree species or things.
Engineering study first, they're not cheap.
I think we need some basic plan. I don't think we need.
We start with any of these jobs. We need some direction from an engineer. I do work around the house. I got to hire somebody to give me an estimate. I just don't go here.
This is not,
well, you are asking for money for studies, and one of the things that we brought up is that, you know, beyond the environmentals and the field studies is design cost for possible renovation of the Brodie house. I think that's, I have to tell you, it took me entirely by surprise. But when we consider what's going on with all these septic costs, you know, I think the selectmen are well, the prior board was unanimously agreed that we should not be in the rental business on that any longer. So a transition was going to occur, and this provides us with an opportunity, you know, to make use of something. But we won't know what the renovation costs of that facility are until we get a professional look at it. We can all guess all we want, but
that needs to be done. But as far as trails are concerned, yeah, I mean, there's $5,000 in there. we're not trailblazers. So it's gonna take somebody that knows where
Yeah,
they're
that
going.
chimney
And tell
alone,
us
that-
exactly what has to be done, what the
Chimney.
plan should be, where's the best use of the money, where's the best place to put a trail. I don't know those things, and I don't think anybody around the
Well, I think
table
you have existing, what I'm envisioning is not blazing new trails, but improving existing.
whatever that may be, we're still, we still need somebody to advise us, because we don't. So anyway, I mean, these are some of the things that, we have discussed, with the first selectman's office, so.
Well, I think when I talked with Kate Rieger, who is the rep from the Board of Finance who's reviewing capital, after I got through with all the glamorous drainage and trucks and reval proposals, we did talk about, alternate, proposals for the Antolini Fields and for the field house, which I do have a consultant going up to look at the stage and that material there to see if it's hazardous, to see if we should get rid of it anyway. We all know that it's older tile and the possibility that might be asbestos. We've had the building inspector in there and it can be used for small groups during the daytime as it stands now. But we also have to get an electrician in there to check out that electrical service too. So it's, like I said, $250,000 dries up so fast when you gotta do the second $40,000 on an $80,000 statistical reval to tell us that property values probably have not gone up, more than likely stayed the same or gone down. And revals don't generate new revenue. They don't create new taxes. All they do is shift it a little bit. So
Anyway, take a look at that. Again, nothing's cast in stone, but these are some of the ideas that we do have.
and if anybody has any other ideas, I mean, I think that,
We did fan out a list to all the members of the commission, and Al came back, and this is kind of an accumulation of those ideas, so.
I think the boat mooring idea a few years out is a great idea, but that area is definitely in need of improvement.
Yeah, the boat mooring is actually, could be a hazard at any point.
That's right.
And,
That's what I mean by that.
Totally, I'm a boater, and I did have my boat there at one point, and as a hazard, waiting to happen, just so you know.
No, I do.
A lot of the reason we
We
pushed
do
it
need
out.
to make,
Oh, I know it
because of
needs
the
to be.
draw- Well, no, pushed it out because of the drawdown. It'd be much more effective and get a much better
Yeah.
job out of it when the water's low, and they only draw it down once every 3 years. And we just missed the last one. So,
Oh,
the
is
3-year
that-
drawdown is this year, so the appropriate pitch would be to be planned and ready to go for the next 3-year drawdown.
We had a party on it, and hopefully draw that, but we missed it.
That's, quite frankly, that was my learning curve on how they draw the lake down. I just didn't know the timing of the schedule, and it takes a little bit of time to get up to speed on those things. But they do a substantial drawdown. They draw it down a little bit, but they really draw it down an extra foot that 3rd year, and that's what makes the ideal working conditions for people with docks and waterfronts.
Go ahead,
All right, next, last month we talked about some ways to try to streamline our campusship process. And I called all the schools, Steve Nato, Antolini, and I let them know that we're gonna be looking for them to provide us with some kids who are in need. And they talked about, the lunch program and what have you, but they can identify kids and they'll let me know. And I'll be sending, if you guys can take a look at these 2 forms here. So I'll send them these 2 forms just to give them a little idea of how we're gonna do this process with the schools. And they'll supply us with the kids. And I told them, as the money is there, we gave both of them, I think we said 15 here, 15 there, but as the money is available. So let's just look at it.
And as you all know, we do our absolute best to, provide as many kids the opportunity as possible, so, and you did a good job on that.
Next, we talked about the fee sheet, which we want to see if we can improve tonight here. Everybody, I put everybody's suggestions in one pot here, and this is what we came up with.
It looks like you've raised the fees at all, speak of. And I know we're not for profit, but we've got to make expenses, and we're not doing it.
I think if you look
We
at
did
this, you'll
raise-
see
we
that.
did raise
we
some of
raise
these.
fees. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
If you look at 2012, that slab over there, we did go up on some of the fees.
Yeah, we did. And one of the reasons is because of that, because of what you just mentioned.
I
That,
think when
we do need we still gotta take care of the property. And again, there's only so much, capital expenditure money, as Dan just mentioned. We've got to build our program account so that we do have some money to do some of the things that are definite need.
I think as we went through and did this and applied, obviously most of the increases are in the non-resident area. And when we applied that to the numbers that we've had historically, I think we came out between $10,000 and $20,000 increase in income. If the numbers stay the same and these fees apply, our income should increase somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000.
Are you kidding? You're increasing non-residents $15.
Yeah, but keep
It's
going
the
down
camp
the
stuff.
list.
Yeah, you can't, yeah, you
Keep
keep going.
going
But
down the
if you
list.
look at the numbers that we had for all of these line items and apply the new rate structure to it, new fee structure to it, it's at least $10. So,
And the sticker stuff, Don, is right in line with, the one I just talked about, St. Cliff Cove. So that's one of the reasons we didn't move much on that, because they're comparable areas, the town people involved in both of them, and we're right in line with those for the residents. Non-residents, as you can see, we went up on.
I think when you look at the numbers too, I think that the beach stickers hold their own. When you look at the amount of labor that goes into the lifeguards, the amount of money that comes in through beach stickers, I think you're in the black there.
Right.
I think where we were hurting a bit was in the camp, and I think you've given a good faith effort here.
Yep.
And that if you see 10 or 12 or 15,000 additional revenue, I think it's going to help your program out all around.
Yeah.
I think you
I think these are
You've held,
completely in line.
how long have you kept the rates in check?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years, and all of our costs have gone up. I mean, you just can't hold down, oil and everything else that costs to run, and propane
The goal is to provide the best product we can for the lowest amount of money, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that.
And it's still at $110 for
That's
a
pretty
week
good.
at regular camp for a resident. That's a bargain, still.
Yeah,
I mean, so yeah, it's going up a little bit,
no, I think that's good.
but it just shows that our costs are going up.
Any objections to this? We'd like to get this, I mean, if we're gonna have an extended conversation on it, obviously, we'll have to delay it until the next meeting. But unless anybody has a serious objection to these, there was a fair amount of thought that went into this. We looked at all the numbers, and it is an appreciable amount of money. That it goes back into the program, which again goes back into the parks.
I think it looks good.
Somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the current fee list.
The 2012.
2012
As
current fee
submitted.
list
As submitted.
as submitted by Mr. Minor.
Second.
All in favor?
She's getting formal on you.
John, I think the one thing you don't see up here is we went up 50% on the Cotton Hill house, the rent.
That's it, 50? Can I rent it tomorrow?
That's a private joke, by the way.
I'll make money on it. Non-resident, how many times have you rented Berkshire Hall to a non-resident?
We probably get maybe, I say 6 or 7 a year, something like that.
You're gonna get $600 for it?
That's cheap.
That's when if you're renting a hall.
If we happen to get more money or we get less,
You can rent
we
my
get less
barn for
attention, that's beating on the bill.
We're going to,
We are,
But I
you
think
don't see that on the
That's
list
gonna be
either,
the
Dan.
senior center.
But I think it draws a good distinction, yeah. It's a town facility for town people, and if people from out of town want to do it, then it should be at a price that helps us.
Next, there are two documents here.
Did we vote on that, John?
Yeah, we did.
No.
Aye, all in favor, we'll do it again. All in favor?
Silly that, was having that dinner.
We got his eye.
Next two documents you see here, you see one from 2003, but you know, went up to the field house with Dan and the fire marshal and the building inspector, and he gave us a document saying that the field house could be used for a small group, about 20. So we, in the summertime, we mostly use the field house for rainy days or some overflow activities. So we can't do it for up to 20 people. So as it is right now. The water meter, we continue to do that, but I think we're going in a different direction maybe.
Good possibility.
I think it's still important to document.
And we still got, you know, there's still a suspicion whether there's a leak someplace, so we need to get those things checked out.
And we already talked about my Rec, computer software. And we've been kicking around, I think, the last few months about Brodie Park and its existence, how it came about, this and that. And this is a piece I did on Brodie Park, a little bit on the history. And coming up on we're right in the middle of the 25th anniversary of the town acquiring the park, and we looked at ways we could, you know, commemorate that, recognize this 25 years. You know,
Good idea.
What's the official date, you know?
Yeah, the official date is, I got the deed right here actually. It's March '86.
May 16th, 86.
May 16th, 86.
So we're closing in our 26 years, so technically, by the time anybody determined that we owned it, it was 1987.
Over there.
So. I think,
You got one right there. Look under there.
I think from a town standpoint.
Under there.
What do you want? A copy of the deed?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You know, this has been a kind of a brief discussion, but I think that we probably should try to figure something out as far as a recognition of the 25th anniversary. I mean, that place up on the top of the hill is just God's country. You know, I used to have a gentleman in our office that was like 87 years old now and retired. And when he found out 15 years ago I lived in New Hartford, he said, I went to camp up there. You know, so, I mean, that's how far back this thing goes. And to have it part of our town is just the greatest thing you can have. It's an envy of many towns. And to have this thing for 25, 26 years, and the improvements that have been made over the last several years, and the dedication by the townspeople, by the, you know, the town hall people, First Selectmen's Office, Recreation Commission, Youth Sports, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, you know, and I'm leaving people out. But there's been such a significant amount of attention given to that park and improvements made. I think we should recognize it somehow. Whether we do it, whether it's in conjunction with
New Hartford Day.
New Hartford Day. I knew there's a reason why she had this question.
You've just figured that out.
I think we really should do something about this.
New
So,
Hartford Day.
I'll ask you all to put your heads together.
Thank you so much for thinking of that.
Sally's just used most of her brain power just now, so she's good.
She's done for a year.
But I think you should bring it up to your committee.
That's me.
She's Miss New York.
I just did.
So yeah, you're right.
That's it. I'm it.
You're right. So anyway, you know, come up with
I
some.
should talk to myself. Okay, but I did. Thank you very much.
Think about how we can do this. How, you know, some ideas to commemorate it, because I really think we should. Actually, it was Dennis. I don't want to take his thunder.
No, he didn't come up with New Hartford Day.
No, not that. You happened to mention it last week. It was like, oh, we don't have that.
What'd you say?
Dennis mentioned it. right, how else, anything else?
I think along those lines, consider, I was relatively new to town, then I've been here 2 or 3 years, only. And I know Anita Baxter took it on the chin when she pushed for the approval of that park. And if we could include recognition of what she had done for the town, I think perhaps one of the reasons that she didn't get reelected was because there was so much animosity at the time. It really did divide the town, and I know that she used extreme efforts to convince the townspeople to buy the park. So along those
Wouldn't
lines,
have happened without her.
right, along those lines, if we could recognize her in what, in this recognition of what the town and townspeople have contributed to the town.
I certainly think we can discuss that, and, you know, if we make it in conjunction with
I think
New
that's a
Hartford
great
Day,
idea.
it'd be a home run.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So,
Unless you had other ideas.
No, that's my idea.
let's continue to think about it. You know, we'd have to get it going, but I don't think anybody's gonna object to recognizing the 25th anniversary.
No, I think it's great.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Go. Quick, I haven't had there yet.
Yeah, well, we're gonna start. You can stay and lift some weights. Sit back and relax.
Okay, I'm leaving. I gotta go.
Along the lines of, I think that we need to aggressively pursue how to approach this fall long before the fall happens. Dennis got this for me from the schools. When you want to use a school facility, this is what the schools have you fill out and put on record. And I think that given the growth of activity in our parks, perhaps the Rec.Commission needs to get a little more involved in recognizing when it's going to be used and who it's going to be used by. And if we move forward to try to accommodate everyone with respect to Brodie South, because it looks like that may be the solution may not be this year, may not be next year. Certainly we hope it's on the horizon. If we could put together a proposal whereby the parks close at sunset, all of the parks and land that the Rec.Commission supervises, and that with special requests along these lines, so that we have a person in charge that will turn the lights off at the appropriate time, and who we can call and will be on site during the use of that, then we can recognize and approve that yes, the facility providing P&Z rules. I think part of this application would be that they would get an approval that whatever they're doing is not in violation of P&Z before they bring it to us, so that takes that burden away from us to either us go to P&Z or us try to determine what P&Z wants. I think that it would not be unreasonable for us to set we did it at the last meeting for the skating rink, saying the lights need to be off by 9 o'clock. So we could put in this proposal an absolute deadline of 8, 9, 7, 10, whatever this commission thought was an appropriate time. Then if you schedule your practices early enough, then you can probably get out of there right before you have to turn on lights. If you don't, I mean, if you want to practice till 9 o'clock at night on August 15th, well, you don't turn on any lights and it's not sunset yet, so people can use the park. But I think we need to take some of the heat out of this debate and put together a proposal that we feel real strong about, and then sit down with the selectmen or whoever we need to enforce it, whether it's a selectman or we go directly to the police for enforcement, and make sure that it gets enforced. Because I heard the same rumors that at least one, maybe two people called the police and the police refused to go up there and do anything. And that's not right either, because had the police been called to go up and stop basketball on the court at 9 o'clock on their headlights, they go up and do that. So why are they enforcing the park closures at dusk on the basketball courts and not any other way? Granted, we haven't had written stuff in place that we can point to. I And I think it's important within the next couple of months that we do that.
I agree, we should try to put the fires out before they start, and we should try to more formalize it. And as you mentioned, P&Z, and Dan will echo this, P&Z is going to be part of our lives and everything we do. The law's changing, that anything we do in the parks, just about all of it has to go through that, so. But I agree, I think we should formalize it, I think we should try to make it as organized as possible.
And there are differences. I mean, as much as people put forth an argument that there aren't that playing space in anything other than, although New Hartford Elementary isn't too bad, but anything other than Brown's Corner. There are rocks, there are pit holes, there are divots, gophers go in there and dig holes. I mean, that playing space, in the daylight, you can see those things to avoid it. But you can't put up enough spotlights so that at night, when you're playing on those surfaces, you don't step in a golf hole and break an ankle. They aren't designed to be played on at night. That doesn't say that we wouldn't approve someone that came forward with a properly filled out application saying we need to use it these hours. And then we'll know that this Saturday morning thing, today is the first time I heard that anybody was up there playing on Saturdays. And I think we need to get a better handle on it. So if they want to play on Saturdays, we know it, and we know what's happening in all of the parks, not just Brodie South.
It adds more structure, and that's not going to hurt us.
Yeah. So. And I know groups are going to be upset, New Hartford Day and Big Wheels and all of those things. Everybody has always been a nod and a handshake because nobody's ever pushed the envelope before. But the envelope is slowly getting sealed.
Anybody disagree that we should put more structure and formalize this process? It can only help. Anything else? Any old business, new business?
I think the difficulty of the debate is that it's never a one size fits all.
No, there will be exceptions to policy, as they say.
Especially with
there are
time zone
exceptions to
changes.
every rule. But as long as you have something in place that someone can come along and say, this is the basis for what we're trying to do, there are exceptions. There's ways to deal with it.
Anything else? Motion?
Motion to adjourn at 8:31.
John.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody know what the score you've got, games?